Coffee with Curry has been lucky to welcome an incredible wealth of talented women to our show. Today, we are highlighting a few of these women who act as role models in our community and who have succeeded in their excellent endeavors despite setbacks and trials. Join us now as we look back at 5 exemplary women that we've interviewed on Coffee with Curry and celebrate their accomplishments for this Women's History Month.
Good morning, Delaware and surrounding areas. You are now tuned in to this week's Coffee with Curry. Join us every Sunday at 11 a.m. with new guests every week. So grab your cup of coffee and join us on Coffee with Curry.
Number 1. Sarah McBride is a Delaware representative and the first transgender woman to serve in the House of Representatives.
I got involved at a relatively young age. I had the opportunity to work for Jack Markell when he was running for governor. It was actually the first job that I had in politics, was organizing for his campaign in 2008 when he ran for governor the first time. And I got involved in many ways as a byproduct of my own crisis of hope as a young person. As a young person growing up, I was blessed with an amazing family, loving parents, opportunities that I cherish and value. But I also was scared, and I was also someone who was different than other people. And I worried that the heart of this nation just wasn't big enough to love someone like me. And I worried that our politics wouldn't see a lot of invisible folks in our society. Gotcha. And I went searching for hope. And I found hope in the possibilities that are in our politics, because I saw that the through line of every chapter in our nation's history has been the story of advocates, activists, and a handful of courageous elected officials working together to right the wrongs of our past, to address injustice, to bring people from the shadows and the margins of society into the circle of opportunity. And I found hope in that. I found hope that politics can be a place where we address the inequities and the injustices in our world. I mentioned I grew up on the west side of Wilmington, over in the Highlands area, and I went to school on the east side of Wilmington. Every day, I'd, with my parents, drive from the west side of Wilmington to the east side of Wilmington. And you could see the stark divides that exist in the city, right? You could see the inequities that exist in the city and the difference in income that from Highlands to the east side were so blatant in just a 5-minute drive. And you see within that, you see the racial disparities that exist in our society and the injustice that causes those racial disparities. And for all of those reasons, I decided to get involved, because I think that in a state of neighbors, in a nation as wealthy and developed as the United States, we have no excuse to let injustice or inequities fester and persist. We have to build governments that see and respect all of us, because if that's not the case, then we're not truly a healthy democracy, and we end up leaving far too many people behind. So I got involved, worked for Governor Markell, worked for our former Attorney General, the late Beau Biden. Oh, yeah. Those were my 2 mentors growing up. I was blessed to learn from them. And I eventually, with their love and support, worked on non-discrimination protections here in Delaware in 2013, protecting people from discrimination in employment, housing, public spaces. Eventually had the opportunity to intern in the Obama White House in 2012, and then worked nationally at the federal level on non-discrimination protections in the broader Democratic progressive movement. And so I've seen those possibilities in our politics come to fruition. I've seen them come to reality. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to run, is I know we can do better. Right. I know we can deliver change that once seemed so impossible that it was incomprehensible, not into possibility, but into reality. And I see every single day, representing the state now, every single day in my own life, how much more needs to be done to not only build a government that sees and respects everyone, but to actually deliver the policies that help people pursue their dreams the kinds of policies that support working people, the kinds of policies that address injustice, the kinds of policies that guarantee that our kids are safe and provided the kinds of opportunities they need and they deserve to reach their fullest potential. There's so much we can do. We've done a lot of that at the state level, but there's so much more to do at the federal level in particular to guarantee that every young person in Delaware, every person in Delaware is able to reach their fullest potential.
Yeah, as you're speaking, I was thinking, in order for us to take serious that we need to save our democracy. Mm-hmm. As you were speaking, I thought about it in an even deeper dive, in that it takes a person who may have been afraid. It takes a person who may have been marginalized to be able to get the power and then speak up.
Yeah.
To ensure that no one will feel like you once may have or be afraid. And I've grown to appreciate the fact that the struggle that I struggle with, there's others who struggle as well. And unless we become open as a continue, because America is bigger than of one view. Mm-hmm. And I've learned that. And as a pastor, it was hard in some areas because, there's a hard line, right, wrong in between. Yeah. But even as a pastor, it becomes sometimes now, as I'm watching various groups that are marginalized, various things where people feel like this way is the only way. Yeah. I'm grateful that no one get to choose what religion I serve. Mm-hmm. And in understanding that, and as an educated person, I then now understand that I have to open up and make sure that I am not discriminating against someone else who may not see things my way. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I look,
that's something that I very truly believe in, that we are stronger together. Mm-hmm. And, as an LGBTQ person, I know that there's a lot of diversity of thought around who I am and my identity. And there's a lot of diversity of thought in faith communities. And I respect that, because I think fundamentally at the end of the day, we can all have a different perspective on a whole host of issues. We can all live our faith slightly differently, as long as we come back to that universal truth, which is that we are all created in God's image. We are all children of God, and we are all deserving of dignity and respect. And we don't have to understand one another fully to see one another, to fight for one another, to deliver for one another. And that's been the hallmark of my career. And, as much as being LGBTQ was at the core of why I felt alone and scared, it's not the reason why I decided to run for office. I got involved in politics in part because of that, but the reason why I decided to run for office in Delaware and for the state Senate in 2019 to represent the district I was born and raised in is not because of any identity background I have. It was because of my own experience as a caregiver to the person who would become my husband, Andy, during his battle with cancer. And we met one another when I was working in the Obama White House and fell in love quickly. He was the kindest, smartest, goofiest person that I had ever met. He was an attorney working to advance access to healthcare in our country. And about a year and a half into our relationship, he was diagnosed with oral cancer. And I became his caregiver. From the first moments after he was diagnosed with cancer, both of us knew how lucky we were. We knew how lucky he was to have health insurance that would allow him to get care that would hopefully save his life. And we both knew how lucky we were to have flexibility with our jobs that allowed him to focus on the full-time job of getting care and me to focus on the full-time job of being there to care for him, to suction his tracheostomy tube, to tend to his wounds, to be there to just support and love him through a really, really scary moment in his own life. And then eventually, unfortunately, his cancer spread to his lungs and it became terminal. We got married. And then 4 days after that, he passed away. And throughout that entire experience, up until his last breath, he knew how lucky he was. He knew how lucky he was to have that time and that ability to get care. And I decided to run for office because I do not believe that in the wealthiest, most developed nation on earth, that time and that ability to get care should be a matter of luck. I believe it should be the law of the land.
Absolutely.
And I believe that there's so much more we can do to provide people with support through the inevitable hardships of life, whether it's the challenging joys of welcoming a child into your family or the abject terror of a serious illness. And there's so much more we can do. But the other thing that you realize in moments like that is all of our differences wash away, and love overtakes, and grace overtakes. And for me, one of the overarching lessons from that moment, yes, was the need to make sure everyone has health insurance and paid family and medical leave, but also this recognition that all of us are children of God granted one precious life. And we have a moral responsibility to one another to do all we can as quickly as we can. And change always takes time, but to do all we can as quickly as we can to make sure that every person can live that one life that God has given us to the fullest.
Yeah.
And it propelled me into running for the state Senate. It propelled me into the work that I did into the state Senate, and it's propelled me into this race as well.
Wow. It's really interesting as I'm sitting here listening to State Representative McBride, which is really Congresswoman McBride. I'm saying, what in the world would push her to go to that fested cesspool place called Washington? Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Number 2. Michelle Harley is the first woman and African-American woman to serve as the chair for the Wilmington City Council's Finance and Economic Development Committee.
You were running for the office. You came over here to meet with me, and I was like, I don't know. And at the end of the day, you stayed consistent, and I think that's really, really important. And now that you're in this position as the first African American female as well as female, I want to make sure I say it both, because it's not only is two, you're doubled.
Yes.
You're the first female, 108 sessions to get to the 9th.
Yes.
For you to become the first, and you are well qualified.
Thank you.
there is no question, but all that's at the table, all that's resting now. I want to now turn our attention. You've been criticized by some people, okay, unjustly in a lot of ways, because they don't understand the art of compromise.
Correct.
You never compromised your values. You never compromised your God. But because you decided, you know what, in order for me to get the whole pie, I need to give up a slice.
Yes.
Yes. How, as in the position that you're in, okay, how will you be able to handle some of the negative defiance that might come upon you? Well, that's about the people. It's about more in council.
Yes. So, so as we shared earlier, my first responsibility is to show up as a believer and a woman of God. And our faith is going to be tested. And one area I feel as though that causes people to get in a lot of contentious situations is because of pride. And so when I'm confronted and I know I'm standing on truth and I'm speaking the truth in love, and I have the facts and I'm attacked, I just have to remember that I just have to humble myself. It's not always easy because as a human, it's natural to want to strike back. Have I felt like I wanted to strike back? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I'm always reminded of what is the goal here? If I am focused on a goal and I'm moving forward and trying to accomplish that goal, then I have to be mature enough to contain myself and to not get out of sorts, because that is when I feel as though it can go in the wrong direction, meaning not being able to accomplish what I need to accomplish. And for me, at the end of the day, it's always about the community and it's about the people. And even as you have mentioned earlier, like for me, like you didn't really do anything to me. I felt as though that was innately wrong, but I clearly understood that I had to build the trust because of previous things, I guess, that have happened with elected officials was part of it, right?
Yes.
But, you know, when you reached out to me, I didn't think about any of that. When you reached out and wanted my help
That's
to
right.
get to the next step in the projects that you were working on, you know, your churches in my district, I just thought about the fact of what you were doing. I didn't think about like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to, you know, shut down, not answer my phone, not answer my emails. I was excited because I was excited about what you were doing.
Gotcha.
And what you were doing is amazing.
Yeah.
What you were doing is what is needed. So my focus is always on what's the main thing.
Okay.
And so I find that if you focus on what's the main thing, that you don't get pulled into foolishness, as I call it.
Absolutely.
And a lot of, you know, contention. And I feel as though as a mature woman, naturally, as a senior legislator, that I really should be the example. And the example sometimes is, you know, having to put my big girl pants on and just take some stuff. I just have to take some stuff, hoping that it will help in the long run and not, you know, continue, you know, the trajectory of something negative that doesn't benefit the council and it doesn't benefit our community.
Yeah, we so desperately need that. As I joke with Kobe almost every week on The Source, you know, how are y'all going to be able to survive? And he's giving off good vibes that it's going to work out this year. It's going to. He's feeling the sense of unity.
Yes.
And speaking of that, we have a new mayor now. We won't go backwards because I would then get negative, and I don't want to be there. But we have a new mayor.
Yes.
I learned of, I've known former Governor Carney and Congressman Carney, and I was always very good with him.
Yes.
Something happened in the middle there. I don't know what exactly it was. But then someone told me, matter of fact, his chief of staff, his current chief of staff, Sharon, called me and said, look, you need to have a conversation with the governor. And I said, no, because somebody done poisoned him against me and I ain't got time for that.
Okay.
And Sharon said, Curry, you need to do what's right.
Right.
Now he's telling the pastor what to do, but he was right though. And I had an opportunity to go to meet with the governor.
Okay.
I learned something. There are mature people in the world.
Yes.
Sometimes you can hang around such immaturity that you tend to think everybody is in that same zone. And when I'm hearing you talk, I'm watching that. Now, we have a new mayor. We're not going to always agree. And I'm sure you're not going to always agree.
Exactly.
What is your relationship currently? And what do you think do you think you'll be able to accomplish a lot with him?
So well, first of all, you know, being a believer, I always look at the glass halfway full and I'm always hopeful.
Yes.
So I start off, you know, giving everybody the benefit of the doubt until I have a reason to change.
Okay.
So the new mayor is just coming on board. We have not had our first official meeting yet, but I have no doubt in my mind that it's not going to go well. I believe it's going to go well. When I read his vision, Mayor Carney put his vision out for the community, sent it out, shared it, and reading through his vision and how he is going to approach being the mayor and what he sees as the areas that need, you know, attention lines up with the same vision that not only myself have, but City Council. You know, we have a strategic plan that we're working on and how we want to approach the next 4 years. And I see it being even more collaborative. I mean, I'm just talking about the vision right now. So when I read his vision, I know what we're trying to do. I have no doubt that we are not going to be able to continue to move the city of Wilmington forward
Yeah.
I have no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I really, I did read his vision as well.
Mhm.
And I said, if we can stick to this,
Yes.
if we can stick to this
Yes.
and take the petty politics out of it, take the petty attitudes
Mhm.
out of it,
Mhm.
I think that City of Wilmington will be a better place
Mhm. Mhm.
next year than it is this year.
Yes.
One of the things that a lot of people ran on was education.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
they tried to use that as we're going to better education. But I heard that there's some good news that there's a committee has been formed.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah. So yes, Mayor Corney, I always keep wanting to call him Governor Corney,
yeah.
right? So Mayor Corney definitely feels very strongly about education. As many know, the city of Wilmington does not have a Wilmington School District. Okay, so that has been a topic of conversation for a long, long time. I personally have been involved in different committees that were talking about the education topic. We act under Dr. Tony Allen, going back to 2010. There was the PACE advocacy group that used to meet at the Christina Cultural Arts Center. And then when the We Act Commission put together the work that we worked on, which was a charge given to Dr. Tony Allen by Governor Markell at the time, which was a plan to reestablish a Wilmington School District. They put the legislation together. It was voted on the House side, but not the Senate side. So, okay, we still didn't get anywhere. So at the time, Governor Carney, since he knew that there wasn't enough votes to actually get legislation passed to get the money to establish a Wilmington School District, he came up with the Wilmington Learning Collab, which is a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, in terms of this governance board that is made up to support and advocate the children in the city of Wilmington, which includes the superintendent of Red Clay, of Christina and Brandywine School District. And then there's a number of other people. There are parents on there. There are other educators on this particular governance board. So we have the Wilmington Learning Collab, and then we have the Lewis Reading Consortium. So that is pretty much under the state. So you have State Rep Chiquocha and Senator Lockman. I know there are two individuals that are at the front leading that particular work. So we, City Council, have been asked, what is City Council going to do? What is the city of Wilmington going to do? So we have been asked that question for many years.
Right. Okay.
So President Congo, I have to give him his kudos and his credit. He has been advocating to do something, the city of Wilmington do something, since I've been on council. And this is my third term. And so I've been on the council for 3 terms with Congo, but it was falling on deaf ears. He would speak on it. He would speak out about it. So finally, here we are. The Lewis Reading Consortium representatives, Lockman and Chiquocha, came to the Committee of the Whole with City Council in November. And they shared a presentation with City Council, and you could feel the urgency in the call to action for the city of Wilmington to do something. So City Council, we said, we're going to step up to the plate. We're going to do something.
Excellent.
So that really was the turning point where we heard that message, and I'm speaking for myself, I heard it in a different way for some reason. And I'm like, we really need to do something. So President Congo, he got the legislation drafted for us to establish an Office of Education Advocacy. So an office, which means that we are going to hire a director to be the face for City Council to go out and to meet with these other educational partners that are out there, the experts, the WLC, the Reading Consortium. You have Education Equity, Ray Jones Avery, the work that they're doing. You have Councilmember Jay Street. So you have a number of educational partners and experts that are already out there that we don't even have to reinvent the wheel. I see our part as going out there to find out, hey, collecting the data. Hey, let's talk about, where are the gaps? And since the state of Delaware, they have the autonomy and the authority over education, we realize that nobody is trying to overstep our lanes or boundaries, but we're just saying, hey, we want to fill a gap. Right. And we want to be a part, of making, making a difference for the children in the city of Wilmington.
And that's your role.
Yes.
That's
and
good.
so that is what that office is all about. And the legislation that we voted on 2 weeks ago, I'm a co-sponsor of that legislation. And that legislation was basically putting the money in the budget for us to hire a director so the director can come and start, doing what they need to do to make sure that we have a voice at the table.
Yeah.
Number 3. Camilla Smith serves in the House of Representatives for Delaware and is also the author of 2 books.
I'm originally from Philadelphia.
Oh!
Yep, born and raised.
Okay.
In Philadelphia. My father was in the military. He was in the branch of Army, the Army branch of military. So we traveled quite a bit until he left the military when I was a teenager. So that's when we went back to Philadelphia and came up in the Philadelphia public school system.
Now, what part of Philadelphia are you from?
West Philadelphia.
Oh, you're from West Philadelphia, because you're from North Philadelphia.
Okay.
And we didn't like y'all too much on the west side of this town.
But I wore my purple.
Yeah, and that's why I'm still with you 100%, 100%. But I'm sorry, but that was good. Okay.
Yeah. So born in raised in West Philadelphia, went through the public school system. Yes. And then I transitioned to college. I went to Overbrook High School.
Oh, you went to Overbrook?
Yep, I did. Will Smith. Okay. Yeah. So as I was coming in, Will Smith was coming out. So I had 1 year of overlap in school with Will. And then I transitioned and went to the University of Pittsburgh, Johnstown campus. So I went to a PWI. Yeah. And then graduated with a degree in sociology. Okay. So from graduation from high school, I was in public service.
And for those who are watching us, you heard us say PWI. I just want to make sure you know that's a predominantly white institution, and that's all. It's because those of you who watch me all the time, I'm always talking about HBCUs. but she pledged right, so everything is good. Everything is good. But okay.
So graduated with a degree in sociology, and then went into human services. Okay, so did a lot of social service work, work with intellectual disabilities. Then worked with aging population. I have worked with mental health for the majority of my career. I am married to my partner, my lifelong dance partner. His name is Mark. He's wonderful. He is like my rock. We will be married for 20 years.
Wow.
Next
20 years.
20 years.
Wow. You don't look to be 20. That's awesome.
I'll take it.
Okay.
We have 5 children. We are a blended.
5? No wonder he's your dance partner. Excuse me. I'm so sorry, but wow, 5.
Yes, we are beautifully blended, fearfully and wonderfully blended.
Okay.
Our children are all doing great things in life. They are making their mark on the world. They support me 100%. I currently work for a health system. Yeah. So I'm doing work that helps people that are impacted by social drivers of health. So whether that be finances, housing, food, workforce practices, all of those things. So that's the work that I'm doing right now.
Wow.
I attend Seeds of Greatness Bible Church.
Okay, excellent. Jerome.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Jerome Lewis is my pastor, my mentor. I am heavily involved in my church.
Excellent.
I am a leader in my church. I am part of the illustrious Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I have been a member of Delta Sigma Theta since 2018. I am part of the Perfect Storm line. So we are out here making differences and impacting lives. So that is who I am.
Yes. Well, you unpacked a whole lot there, from your faith to your family. And this is just awesome. 5 children. That's where I'm going to start unpacking.
Okay, let's do it.
5 children, and the age is about the range.
So we range from our oldest son is 29.
Okay.
He's in his last year of his 20s. And then our youngest is 21.
Excellent. Excellent. Yes. So you all have done well.
We have done well.
And they've been able to do the things they needed to do.
Yes, we have done blending well, so well that I wrote a book about it. So I'm also an author.
I didn't know that.
Yep. I am
Tell me
an
a little bit
author.
about that real quick.
So I have a book that's called A Heart That Forgives. And it just goes to tell the story of our blended experience and how we blended our family and how we went through some struggles in blending our family and how it's like making a cake, right? Like you have to blend the cake in order for the cake to bake, right? So we did that. And I think that we did that well. We're still blending, right? Now we have a grandchild. And that's still part of our blended family. So we will, for generations to come, we will be blending. So my husband and I had to be the example of that. And of course, everything, as you know, was led by God. So whatever he says do is what I do. So I wrote the book. I'm also an author of a second book. I did a book with my niece. My niece is 8 years old. She saw that I wrote a book and she had questions about that. So I said, it sounds like you want to write a book too. You're asking so many questions. Let's just do it. So her mother and father would bring her to my house and we would just start drafting the book. And she brought her vision to life of what she wanted that to look like. And we published it. So we published the book. It's called My Hair Day. It's on Amazon by Skylar Robinson. So more books to come.
Just to talk about that. So you have many different hats.
Yes.
I can bring you in as a preacher. I can bring you in as a teacher. I can bring you in as a state rep. There's so many. Oh, wow. This is just awesome, Sister of Delta Sigma Theta. Let's talk about your niece who decided to ask a plethora of questions and ended up producing a book. How did that go?
So she asked, like you said, she asked so many questions. And to me, it sounded like she was so inquisitive. So if you're so inquisitive, just let's do it. Let's do it. And I think that's something that we need to do with our youth more. More. We need to do that more because we could be cultivating something so great, right? Like, so if we see something great in them, we have to cultivate that. We have to rub that thing and make sure that thing comes to life. So that's what we did with her. And I don't think that she knew that it would come alive. So I have video of her getting the book, like, when it came to print, and just her excitement to see something that she thought about come alive.
Yes.
That's all worth it.
Yes.
It's all worth it. She was also on my campaign. She was part of my campaign team. Yeah. She did a lot of knocking on doors and she started to understand what campaigning was. So who knows? She might be the next president. She might be the next state representative. We don't know.
And she has a great example.
Yes.
And we're not
about
talking
us
about people
cultivating
on the
our
national
kids.
level, but right in the family.
Yeah. It's about us making sure that when we see the greatness in our kids, that we pull that out.
Number 4. Gladys Spikes is the executive director of the Housing Opportunities of Northern Delaware, dedicating her life to such humanitarian work as assisting underprivileged families to buy homes.
Well, things are going great. We're in the midst of writing grants and helping families, especially mortgage foreclosure prevention, families that are trying to save their homes from foreclosure. And we're also helping first-time home buyers, which we're always excited to talk about.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into all of that in a few minutes. I want to first talk a little bit about you. 34 years in this field. You are truly a multi-generational Wilmingtonian. Is that, or Delawarean? I can't remember which one it was.
It's Wilmingtonian and Delawarean too as well. Yes, that's true. My great-grandfather, he came to Wilmington. And then on both sides, and then my grandmother was born in Port Penn, I think, and my other grandmother was born in Wilmington. Okay. And my father and mother were both born in Wilmington at the famous Wilmington General Hospital. Oh, wow. Where I was born.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, what hospital is it now? Is Wilmington General still around?
No. Wilmington General was torn down. Okay. And we now have Christiana Care. So we have the Delaware Hospital that's here in Wilmington, or the Wilmington Hospital that's here in Wilmington. And then we have Christiana Care with all of its other areas.
Yeah. And so you were raised there. What school did you go to?
Well, I went to, I grew up on the South Side, or South Bridge, right here in South Bridge.
Oh, wow.
And I live right down there on Newcastle Avenue, 819 Newcastle Avenue.
Wow.
Across from Eden Park.
I am always so excited to speak with people who were born in this area. Our church, 5 years ago, 4 years, was founded right here. And it's just wonderful and mesmerizing to see people
Yeah.
who are just products of Southbridge. This is a great place to be and to live, and so many great things are going on. You had an opportunity to go to school here, and what schools did you go to?
I went to Wilmington High School.
Okay.
And then I left there, and I matriculated to Delaware State College at the time.
Yeah.
And graduated in 1969.
Oh, wow. But you don't want to give those dates because you don't look anywhere near the age. If you graduated in 1969, Brother Man right here was just born.
I know.
But that's awesome. That's awesome. And you are an HBCU person.
Yes,
and a member of the oldest historically Black sorority.
Yes. Alpha Kappa Alpha.
Are you still active with Alpha Kappa Alpha?
Yes, I am.
Oh, excellent.
In the graduate chapter.
Yes.
Theta Omega.
Okay, right here in the Wilmington chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I have some good friends in that chapter. I think Daphne Warner is in that chapter, and many others. I think Pat Diggs is in your chapter too.
Yes.
So and she gave me my first job. So whenever I speak of AKAs, I think of certain people right away.
Oh, wow.
And they're right here in this Wilmington chapter. We did something really positive together 2 years ago, right in the heat of COVID. They gave away all of these beautiful gowns to children, young people who wanted gowns, and y'all provided them, and we stored them and allowed this to be a place for distribution.
Yeah, I know. I remember that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Y'all always doing something wonderful in the community, and I'm grateful for that.
I love to support candidates for, I do a lot of, okay. So just to give you a little history about myself, I was one of those individuals that belonged to the NAACP youth group back in the 50s, 60s, in the 60s. And we actually did walk picket lines. I actually went to People's Settlement when it was all white, and all they offered us was the sit-in, how to do a sit-in with when Dr. Martin Luther King was working for us.
Oh, okay.
And then also I got a chance to meet Dr. Martin Luther King when he came to Community Presbyterian Church.
Yeah, under Moyer.
Moyer, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
well, you've really done a lot, and you're very active, and I guess that's going to keep your mind sharp too. And but it's always to help somebody else. It seems like service is the motto of who you are.
It is.
Yeah. I'm just reminded of a quote that Dr. King said: "Every man cannot be famous because every man cannot be well known, but every man can be great because they can serve." And you are certainly trying to make your mark. It seems like every organization you belong to are about service.
Yeah. And I'm also president of a group called Housing Helpers Incorporated.
Okay.
And we probably would like to speak to you about that maybe on another occasion. Mm-hmm. But it was unique because it was founded in 1985 when there was no down payment settlement assistance or any assistance for families of color. And so we created this nonprofit that actually, it was like a lease purchase kind of situation where you didn't have to have any of the credentials to be able to buy a house, but we would work with you, put you in touch with a housing counselor, and we would buy the house for a very low amount of money and then sell it back to you after 4 years of getting yourself in service.
Yeah, people don't understand the level of support that organizations like you are involving yourself in really provide. But there are a lot of people living today in a better state because of those type of organizations. Mm-hmm. And that's why I wanted to take the time even to talk about the HOD organization, because you're doing a great work even with that. We often see the work, we hear about things, but we don't pay attention to the details of all the work, sweat, the tears that is involved with that as well. And even though we start off by talking about you personally, I wanted the people to see that the person that's sitting before them is one who your whole life have been committed to service. I mean, you could have been you went to the great Delaware State University, you could have been doing so many other things, but you chose to commit your life to service. And I hope that, when your history is told, that it reflects that you really just cared about people.
Yeah, that's true. But I was a loan officer for a few years for PNC Bank. In fact, I was the first Black female that they hired as a community reinvestment action Okay. Lender or loan officer. And it was at the time when PNC Bank was PNC Bank wanted to purchase Bank of Delaware back then. Mm-hmm. That's what it was called. And so they couldn't pass the test because they hadn't served enough low, moderate income families or minority families. And so they hired me, and they created this First Front Door program. I think it was one of the first of its kind.
They still have that program, don't they?
Yeah, well, they brought it back.
Oh, okay. All right.
And it's not really PNC. Now I think it's with, I'm trying to think. It's from the Pittsburgh financial.
Yeah. Matter of fact, we working with them now, even with the housing project that we have here.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Bank of Pittsburgh or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I worked there for maybe 4 years. So the first year, they gave me a big curve and they said, listen, we need for you to really make some closings, right? And they made it an ideal package for me. But they didn't think that I was going to have as many families settle in that time span. I mean, like in 10 months, I had 80 families to actually purchase their first homes, right? And so the second year, because they were able to make the purchase of Bank of Delaware, PNC, then they started changing the rules. That's when I found out that being a loan officer and with the whole mortgage situation is really very subjective.
Oh.
Number 5. Sherry Dorsey Walker is a former state representative who ran for lieutenant governor in 2024. She is a strong community leader and has delivered effective legislation that champions awareness and equality.
They did not do well. And one of the purposes for me interviewing you today is for this moment I'm going to go to next. And that is, you still have a smile on your face. Absolutely. You still have joy on the inside. There was some, the flesh always want to take over. You didn't let it. But the flesh says, oh man, I didn't win an election. But the spirit that's in you says, then God has something greater. So I will not let depression, I will not let defeat overtake me. I'm going to look for what you have next, Lord. Could you just spend a moment to that sister, that brother who may have had a loss or had things didn't turn out the way they thought it should? Could you just speak to them of how you just rebound, because you've done a great job at that?
So I can speak to loving who you are.
Okay.
I can speak to being able to look at yourself every day in the mirror and say, I'm more than a conqueror through Christ Jesus. And if your religion is something else, then whatever that same expression is in your religion, saying that. And I can also speak to trusting when you can't trace.
That's Pastor Curry phrase.
So there are times when it seems like this is exactly what I was told to do, not by man, but by the supernatural. And it still doesn't turn out the way you would like in the natural. But understand that there is something greater for you. And so this is where the spirit of depression, as you mentioned, this is why suicide rates are so high throughout our country with different populations, and in particular our veterans. And I have such a heart for our veterans. My father served in Vietnam, and I come from a family of veterans. And young people are finding it, and I'm an adjunct at University of Delaware, and some of the things that my students say when they come in the room, and come in the classroom, and I see something is going on with them, I'll shift what the lesson plan is supposed to be for that day to speak to their spirit without them even knowing that that's what's happening. And so what we need to do is be able to speak to the heart of the man or the woman who's struggling and be able to tell them tomorrow is on the horizon. Just trust that there will be a better day, and it will get better. But you have to trust the plan for your life. You're not going to be here forever. And there is something that is forthcoming that only He knows.
Right.
But you have to trust it.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this moment, I know this is the trying and testing of my faith, because there's not a testimony without the test. You get to see people for who they really are. And even in seeing them for who they are, you can still love them through whatever they have done to you. Because you are the better person at the end of the day when you don't, one, retaliate, when you don't seek vengeance, and when you don't try to hurt people intentionally because they did something to hurt you.
Absolutely.
As I mentioned earlier in the show, God can bless you in the presence of your enemies.
Oh, yeah.
He'll have them seated at the table and sit there and have you be the queen or the king. But we just have to trust that process, believe, and know that we shall achieve.
Yeah, I was going to call Hurst and tell him he may want to throw the license at you too. You're giving the word of God so strongly, but that's so true. And for those who are watching us today, I want to make sure that you understand that the process of God doesn't always mean you're going to get your way. I believe with all my heart that the Lord encouraged you or told you that, Sherry, run for this office, but the Lord didn't say you would get it. There is something that you did along the way that got the will of God done, whether it be encouraging some soul, whether it be bringing His name praise someplace.
Absolutely.
He has a purpose. He has a plan, and it's not always going to be the way we want, but you ended it well. You landed your plane well. You got to trust the process. Sometimes you got to go off of God's heart when you don't even understand His hand. And when my mother had transitioned, that was one of the most critical pieces in the book I'm getting ready to write. That's going to be a chapter by itself. Trust His heart when you don't understand His hand. Because in your case, as a person who's out there doing great, should have won by hands down with no question. But God said, not so for now. Can you trust me that I got something better? And that's really what your theme have been in all of your conversation today. For those of you who are stressed out and you're trying to figure it out, trust the process. He'll never fail you. David said these words, I once was young, and this is not a church service. I once was young, but now I'm old, but I've never seen the righteous forsaken,
nor his seed begging bread.
And that is a truth that I can stand on as well. So State Rep, you're going to always be our public servant.
Indeed.
I hope that, and I didn't know that you were working at the University of Delaware as an adjunct professor, so you're just so busy all over the place. But I hope that
I've been there for years.
On the state level or even on the city level, one of them pick you up. But I really hope that it be on the state level so that you can stay connected, because I just believe God has something higher. And I want you to be connected. And if there's anything Zion Fair or Pastor Curry can do to support your quest, your endeavor, where the Lord is calling you, count it done. That's all I want to say. And I'm not a show up late. Let me show up a little bit late and then don't count on me. No, I want you to know we love Sherry. We are when one of your opponents called saying, "Could you please support me?" I said, well, I'm with Sherry. Same way I was with Matt too, but I said I'm with Sherry. And at the end of the day, I'm not only was with you during that season. I'm with you in this season. I'm with you the next season. As long as you're doing what the Lord say do, you always going to have friends. And you're going to have friends that He sends you. And you said this, and I'm kind of going to let you have the last word, but you did say that you were able, you were able to see some things that you may not have been able to see had you not gone through this process. But thanks be to God who's given us victory.
Absolutely.
I'll let you have the last word today.
I have to say that over 31,000 people voted for me. And I'm so grateful to every last one of them. And as you mentioned, there's something that we needed to see. You see who's on your side. You see Karen Knight. She's my sister. She is one of my best friends. And my sister Anita, my sister Jillian, my brother Clayton, my family came forth and said, this is what we're going to do. Dr. Keenan Dorsey, Dr. Sheila Dorsey, Karen Burton, my cousin Brenda, like family stood up and said, this is what we're going to do. Shia, Curie. I mean, the list continues. Cousin Miriam, every last one of the individuals who I just mentioned, Miss Ramanda, they sacrificed. And there's so many more. They made so many sacrifices for us to get to the 31,000, a little over 31,000. And none of us did anything, and of course my husband and my mother did anything where the integrity would not be intact.
Amen.
Where character would come into question. Now, there were those who tried some things, and even up to the day before the election, and putting out mistruths and so on and so forth. And I stood firm. And my team was like, do you want to respond? I said, no, because that's called a distraction. So responding to that is taking time away from being over here, knocking on doors and connecting with people. And everywhere I go, where there was a big cluster meeting for Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Sunday in Wilmington, and over 1,000 AKAs descended here from our region, the North Atlantic region. And so many of them said, look, we voted for you, we voted for you, we voted for you. And I said, thank you. And they said, and you're not mad? I said, I said, no. They said, see, you are showing us, and not just AKAs, but people throughout the state have said to me, you are showing us grace. You are showing us, and some didn't know what it was. Like, something is different, but you're showing us how to stand strong in the midst of adversity. And I said, well, that's been the story of my life. You know, adding Black History to the state's curriculum, House Bill 198, making Juneteenth a permanent paid state holiday, House Bill 119. Those weren't easy bills to get passed. But the chosen vessel said, I'm going to shepherd this through. Even when folks were like, I don't know this is going to happen. And our children said, but it can, and we're going to walk with you. So this is the message I have for people. Continue walking. Continue walking. Continue. If you need to run, run. Do whatever you need to do to get to your place of destiny. But never, ever, ever give up, no matter what the situation or circumstance is.
Absolutely.
Trust the process.
Amen. Amen. Well, you heard it right here on the Coffee with Curry. Trust the process. That's going to be the theme of this show today. I'm glad, and I'm sure if I call you within the next couple of months to see what you're doing, how things going, you will definitely show up again, I'm sure, won't you?
Without question. That's why I wore the purple, for royalty.
Okay, amen. Amen.
And of course, because you are an illustrious member of
Amen. And proud.
Yes, as is, you know, and I have some uncles who are too. So yeah. This was an opportunity to say thank you.
Yes. Well, the people feel you, and we want to bring it back to you and say thank you. Thank you for what you have, is, and will do for our community, for our individual lives, and for showing us what it looks like to be a Christian. And even when the pastor angry, not Tamar Hurst, about Curry, even when the pastor is angry, you still showing us the grace and the mercy that God requires that we share and display. Thanks so very much. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
Thank you for watching this episode of Coffee with Curry. Tune in next week, Sunday at 11 a.m.